So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Definitely, although I'd probably suggest that it's the older end of young adult, and of course adults can enjoy it as well. Hi everyone, my name is Terry Westwell and today is Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our Panic at the Book Club book of the week, which is Songlight by Moira Buffini. If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below a video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message. Don't be deceived by North Haven's prettiness, by its whitewashed houses and sea views. In truth, most of the townsfolk are ruthless hunters. They revile those who have developed Songlight, the ability to telepathically connect with others. Anyone found with this sixth sense is caught, persecuted, and denounced. Black has been in danger ever since her own Songlight emerged. Then she encounters a young woman in peril from a city far away. An extraordinary bond is formed, but who can they trust? The world is at war, and those with Songlight are pawns in a dangerous game of politics. Friends, neighbours, families are all quick to turn on each other, and when power is everything, how will they survive? First, this is a spoiler-free part where we'll discuss any spoiler-free points before moving on to a clearly marked section of the video which will contain spoilers and more specifics about the book. As usual, let's start with those chapter lengths. Although I do own the physical book for this one, and a beautiful book at that with sprayed edges, I did actually listen to this one on audiobook just because it freed up some of my time to do some other things. Now, I am the sort of person who likes to read my audiobooks on times 1.8 speed. So if you are the sort of person who likes to listen to the audiobook on the normal speed, then I think for the most part they were perfectly reasonable, if not extremely varied. Well, that was a boo-boo. I forgot to use my microphone. I knew my desk was way too clear. I forgot my microphone. So hopefully the audio isn't absolute trash. I think for the most part they were kind of between 10 and 20 minutes. However, you would occasionally get the odd few where it was either 2 minutes or 28 minutes, which in truth is very common when it comes to books that are multiple perspectives. As I've said many times, I am a basic bitch and a single POV will forever be my favourite. When I'm reading a book that's multiple perspectives, I usually prefer to read the physical because I can keep a better track of who the hell is who. And maybe that mostly relates to older audiobooks because they have actually gotten a lot better over the last few years. I do like the fact that they've started to use different voices or completely different narrators for different characters, and after a while you begin to associate that voice with that character, and I think that that's something this book does really well. There's just something about each of the voices that seemed distinctly different. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't an immediate process. With 5 characters and code names going on, it did take me a minute, but actually the process of getting to know the characters was a relatively easy one. All the characters were also really different, and not just in their gender or where they existed in the world or their abilities, but also where they stood politically or in their beliefs. It's this sort of dystopian world where things like racism, sexism, and homophobia are such a big problem, while also having this hatred for people with Songlight. So their characters really differed depending on where they kind of stood in that society. It was incredibly easy to read and follow, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did double check that it was in fact a YA because I was surprised with just how dark it was. I think that the author did a great job of creating this dark and rather fucked up world without going too explicit. I think that they did a really good job of treating their target audience like their actual age instead of going too gentle and too easy on creating this world. I think that can often be the problem with YA books and why they have that stigma attached to it. However, I'm on the side where you can read what you damn well want. But in this case, there was quite a lot for the reader to experience, as well as reading between those lines and figuring stuff out for yourself. I think overall the story was interesting and it had its tense moments. I don't feel like a great deal happened, but when it comes to series, especially a fantasy series, that's quite often the case when it comes to the first one. I've rated this one a generous 4 stars because it wasn't my favourite, but I think there's a lot of potential there. We've been introduced to a lot of characters and missions and a lot of side quests. If I had to compare this to any other book, it would absolutely be The Girl with No Soul by Morgan Owen, and maybe some similarities with something like Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. Like, it definitely has that corrupt government, dystopian future magic wielding like A Girl with No Soul, but it also has a quest vibe with darker elements like Godkiller does. Now, moving on to that part of the video, I suggest if you haven't read this book yet, go do that first, because beyond this point there'll definitely be spoilers. At one point or another, each one of these characters either just pissed me off or consistently annoyed me. I mean, do I really have to go into detail when it comes to Piper? I mean, I get it, I really do. This guy was hit hard with the propaganda, but like, the guy's obviously gay, which in this world is a huge no-no, but he's just in so much denial over it. I did try and remind myself often that it wasn't really his fault. It was this horrible world that had corrupted in this way and maybe even taught him to hate himself, but he's going to have a horrible time in the next book because he has to face all the horrible shit he did. God, now I've got to try and match this on the other eye. I also contemplated, or just straight up planned, to leave and run away either with or without her mum on several occasions. And yet, now that she's found this better place where she can be herself, be accepted in this community and not live in fear anymore, now it's a huge problem. Like, she just has to go back. I get that she also wanted to find Nightingale and help her out, but girl, what were you going to do on your own when you got there? She planned and failed on multiple occasions to run away from this place, so how the hell was she gonna go and find Nightingale, this time without her damn boat? And apart from fishing and maybe climbing trees, she doesn't seem all that competent on her own. Talk about 1 step forward and 2 steps back. I think that one's a little smaller, but I think it's level enough. I don't really have anything to say about Rye. I mean, whatever the hell happened to him. I mean, I guess that they'll probably bump into each other in the next book or two, but I don't know, he was surprisingly more competent than I thought he was going to be. Now, the whole thing with Nightingale and Swan, now that's obviously a huge problem. I mean, Nightingale clearly has some issues, despite who her dad is and what he does. You know, she doesn't seem to have much of a problem with it. Not as much as she should anyway, considering she has Songlight. Another character in denial who now wants to help fix this woman who is clearly going through her own mental health issues. Swan I did find to be a little bit creepy, but she clearly just wants to be loved while only really knowing how to have a relationship through manipulation and abuse. She's pretty much lived her whole life in this constant fight or flight and doesn't have the patience nor understanding for all of Nightingale's very strong emotional outbursts. You know, it has a varied list of characters who are also going through their own shit, as well as trying to deal with this oncoming of an even bigger shitstorm, and I can't help but be a little bit curious as to how all that's going to pan out. So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Definitely, although I'd probably suggest that it's the older end of young adult, and of course adults can enjoy it as well. I say the higher end of YA because although it wasn't super explicit, between the lines it was still quite a dark book. But it's a great concept with interesting character perspectives and a really nice setup for a short series. So will I be reading any more by Moira Buffini? I think the next book in the series comes out later next year, and I think mostly out of a sense of curiosity, I'd probably pick that one up as well. I think if the book was already out, I probably wouldn't rush to go and read it, simply because I'm already in the middle of a ton of fantasy series that I do think I enjoy more. However, I did still really enjoy it, and I'm intrigued as to where the author's going to go from there. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book?
This week I read Songlight for Panic at the Book Club, and generally I enjoyed it. It did take me a while to get into it, but no, I did end up enjoying it. The magic system's pretty good because it's very simple, but that's really not a bad thing because it's all obviously based on like mind powers, because it's something so ingrained in like sci-fi and fantasy culture. It means that she didn't really need to explain it that much, and she could just add her own twist on it and just expand on what's already there. So that really didn't get in the way of the main narrative, which I quite enjoyed. And the story just cracked on, which was good. It was bam, something happened. Bam, something else happened. And it was pretty good. I mean, it was all rather depressing, and it was one of those stories where the more you think about what they're saying, you're like, oh, well, this is awful. Ah, what a terrible society. Oh, great. Like, oh, look, there's too many women, so you're all going to be sex slaves because fuck you, right? That's awful. Yeah, men, they suck, you know. It's like, yeah, we know that. It's like, no, they really suck. I'm like, yeah, we know that. You don't have to bang on about it. It's all right, love. But it was enjoyable. I mean, yeah, so long as you don't think too much about it, it's quite light-hearted, a book. I have no idea what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. I like how ambiguous, obviously it's being a dystopian one. I like how like, it was like, it's dystopian, but we're not exactly sure how long ago, we're not really sure what happened. There's not really actually a good sense most of the way through the book exactly where they have rebuilt technology to, apart from, no, you're not allowed to use guns. Guns ruin the world, guns awful. It's either guns or fossil fuel. Guns, they're awful, and then everyone's there going, oh, you know, we all agreed not to use guns. You know, it would really help us in these wars. Guns. So yeah, those are the main points, I suppose. Guns, men suck, easy read.
Next week will be The Perfect Son by Freida Mcfadden, so don't forget to get your comments and thoughts in by Monday the 25th of November at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week will be snowed in at the Café, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye!